Hi, Adam. Thanks for joining us for this little chat,
It's my pleasure, Noam. My
pre
pleasure.
pre-concert chat, live
That's right.
concert chat. Um, and so yeah, I'm just gonna ask you a few questions about the piece you wrote for Architect. That's now about 7, 8 years old. Years
Mm-hmm.
old.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's called The Privacy of Domestic Life, and I guess it was premiered in 2014, and you've awarded
Yeah.
it before then. Um, and so, yeah, could you tell us a bit about the piece and what inspired it?
Yeah, it's really funny to talk about what inspired a piece with this title, right now. I think when we're all at home a lot and I mean the original idea for the piece was around my experience composing music at that time was really an experience of sitting at home um, in at the time small apartment on Avenue du Parc in Bernard, and sitting in this desk with my feet on the heater in winter, and desperately trying to put music on paper like every day, like and um, and it involved a lot of staying at home, and I was and a lot of concentrated alone time, like projecting listening in a weird way, trying to imagine what or how what I'm writing is gonna sound, and uh, and through that I just I just felt like while I was at home I was uh, it gets into this meditative space where you're listening. um, you start listening microscopically to things that are otherwise not particularly important,
Mhm.
and uh, and this process of like going into the sound and hearing something that you've heard many times for the first time in this different way, and falling deeper, Alice falling deeper down the rabbit hole, of like, oh, and there's this thing in there, and like that thing kind of reminds me of this other thing, and it was very much trying to explore this idea, like as a way of exploring what it was like for me to actually spend time composing the piece, to have some sort of resonance between what it was really like, and what um, the kind of devices, let's say, I was using
Mhm.
for inspiration.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
Okay.
it's very much about staying at home and about these familiar sounds, and like I've always been very interested in like the sounds of neighbors, like somebody from across the wall.
Mhm.
I remember there was a very old woman. I had a neighbor who was probably in her 80s or 90s, who was living in the apartment next to me, and she was hard of hearing. She would be turning her TV up super loud, and you just hear this like little thing through the wall, and there were a lot of kind of recordings of my apartment and my brother's apartment at the time, and these kind of spaces which I thought were like mundane, but we were spending so much time in them that I was trying to uh, kind of use a sonic magnifying glass, maybe, kind of approach to
Mhm.
it.
Mhm. Yeah, cool. And yeah, so the piece is broken down into three movements. I don't actually know the title of those movements, but
I
could you?
was, I was just, yeah, the first one is the privacy of domestic life.
Mhm.
The second one is strike struck.
Mhm.
And the third one is called I want to listen to you like never before, or something
Okay.
along those lines.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and yeah, the idea of the three parts was it was a bit like a challenge to myself. Like I really wanted to do some things in this piece because I thought it would be long, and I kind of wanted something that had a durational element to it. So I thought, I want to try to do some different things that I haven't been able to do, or like maybe felt like I was against my natural intuition. So I wanted to try some new things, and then I wanted also to have kind of the things that I knew I could do. I wanted to really focus them and really distill them and make them more concentrated. And so basically, I would say like the middle section is the kind of section where I could say, well, it's the most like, other pieces or other devices that I've used, ideas of like, there's a lot of juxtaposition of ideas and kind of like fast switches between things. And actually I would say it's like a very distilled version of kind of ideas maybe that I've played around with before. But the first movement, for instance, is very was a very cool one to write, because I really had to make a decision of like, I want this to be very static for like the first 4 minutes. I don't even think anybody's on stage for the first 4 minutes, and really condition people to listen in this like distracted listening, but like very intense psychological kind of like nothing's happening. You get pulled further into the sound, and then even when the percussion instruments start, I was really trying to rein myself back. Like my natural instinct would be to develop these things a lot faster and like just give you a flavor of static, but not actually let you sit in it. And so it's very much about this like slow simmer, which was difficult for me to do, and not something that I particularly did a lot before. So there were a lot of cool things like that, and the three movements kind of work in this way, where the first one is really kind of a priming experiment of like preparing the listener for through this long simmer, and then the middle is this very intense juxtaposition of with like these short cycles that kind of expand in time a little bit. Like I always really loved Gerard Grisey's Vortex Temporum. It has these kind of like structures which like they're cyclical, but they just get bigger and bigger, and I find it fascinating to listen to. And then the third movement is again goes back to this ambience for a lot of it, but in a really it's not really a simmer anymore. It's just kind of like it's kind of like the wind blowing in the back alley sort of thing. It's not really going anywhere for a long time, but it just swirls in this way that after listening to the second movement, I think there's so much happening that in the third movement you can just kind of like let go a little bit again as a listener. So that was structurally what I was trying to do a little bit.
No, that's super interesting. I mean, I obviously haven't played the piece, but it's kind of an approach in other works that in other kind of extended duration works that I've played that I really appreciate as a performer. Also, just to be like, you bring people in, and everyone kind of accepts pretty early on that they'll be there for a while, and they enjoy and they appreciate. And
I think, I mean, it was like you said, this was written maybe 7 years ago, and so like I feel like today making a decision to write a piece like that is not hard for me, like I feel I can make that decision, and it's just up to me. At the time, it was definitely a lot harder. I would say it was really a very conscious thing of like of allowing, I think it takes a lot of confidence to allow that kind of mode of listening to take over, because and I say, as a listener, I always feel pieces like that, they fall one of two ways for me. It's either like transcendentally amazing, or it's boring. Like there's not a lot of middle ground. A piece with a lot of complexity and stuff like that, you can be like, oh, I like it, I don't like it, I like this part, I don't like this part. Mm-hmm. These pieces that are very distilled and very focused, and really the duration is so psychologically important, then it's like, it depends on my psychology as a listener. If I'm having a rough day and I'm like, it's been a hectic day, like I don't know if I can get to that mode of listening, so the responsibility on the listener becomes, or the kind of participation becomes really important. And you know, I think that's scary for a composer because you know, we're basically like controlling a bunch of stuff.
Right.
You know, we're basically putting a bunch of instructions and then like hoping that the performers would write. I don't know. You know, so like,
and and it goes further than the performers. I mean, it's the production of the
production
show or the video, and now like how you know how people are going to view this video, which was
for sure
not originally meant to be in video. At least not originally meant to be in video form.
Yeah,
that's different as well.
Yeah, and I mean the video. I think for this piece it made a lot of sense too. I know you wanted to talk a little bit about the, you know, the scenography, and there's kind of like these visual elements, and it was something that, you know, I was fairly new in my practice at the time, but again, it was, you know, it's maybe related a little bit to the static and to this idea of atmosphere, you know, and like the music is different if you dim the lights. I mean, it sounds stupid, but like, you know, it is. It's like, it could be the same sounds that you make, but the experience is different. So yeah, there are a lot of ideas of like, you know, how to like sometimes accentuate things or feelings, or enable certain things through non-sounding decisions, and at other point to kind of like you know, like that can be done in a very obvious or didactic way, and which is fine, and sometimes in the piece it very much is, you know, operating on that level, and in other ways it's maybe a little bit more like I would liken it more to it's like playing the same chord in a different voicing, you know. It's like, it's just kind of like it's orchestrating things in a way that is not sounding, but is affecting the way that you see the sound. But it's less of a scenographic support, and it's more like having another instrument there, which was an interesting thing to work with, you know.
Yeah, totally. And so this is, as we've said a couple of times, this is an old piece, and your practice has obviously evolved a lot over the years. Can you talk briefly about that evolution, and anything you want to, any current projects that you're working on and that you'd like to?
First of all, let me apologize to all the contemporary music people. No. I think it's about time somebody, you know, asked me to explain myself.
Doing this.
No, it's funny, you know. It's funny. It's you know, I think I can look back at that piece and see seeds of things that I'm still thinking about and working on now, and definitely the idea that I'm interested in the experience of listening, and that doesn't have to be in the concert, or a concert kind of enables certain things to happen, and other situations enable other things to happen, and that a lot of the experience, even in the concert, is visual, both in the sense of the performers, but also like you go to a symphony concert hall or like a little, you know, gallery space. It's a different piece that you're hearing. So a lot of these things, you know, they were very much in the forefront of my attention at the time, like exploring them as something very new, but exploring them still with this kind of like anchor of you know, music. It's kind of this scaffolding that I just know it's stable, you know, because I know that other people do this, and that it just kind of works, you know. Like I can try to explore my own path within that. But yeah, I mean, I guess, you know, at some point it as the more that I was doing stuff outside of music, the more I got comfortable, you know, doing that, and not feeling that I need this structure to support it. And so definitely, definitely like the work that I do today is I would say that maybe the most important thing is that it's far from the process of writing that piece, which is kind of funny because now we're all kind of in this situation where we're, you know, in our homes. But um, I think writing that piece or writing pieces around that time, uh, the experience, the disembodied experience of the composer was starting to really bother me, you know. And I think it's a really big difference between composers and performers, that at the time I didn't realize, but like today, thinking back of being a performer like 20 years ago, you know, it's like what a magical like thing to do, you know, what an energy and like a you know, engaging the body and engaging the mind and the ears, but also within a much more human spectrum, I think, than sitting at a desk and trying to make decisions on paper or with a computer. And so, I mean, there's elements in that piece which I think, you know, start to explore this idea. Maybe there's one section where there are these transducers on the snare drums. You know, they're playing these frequencies, and by placing hands on the snare drum, you kind of change the frequencies. And it was, you know, it's an improvisational kind of technique, which is not something I used a lot at the time, and certainly used a lot since. And you know, it just occurred to me that this is like a more fun way of writing. Maybe it's a more fun way of performing, I think, for some performers, you know. And so yeah, there are a lot of these kind of like that piece was a little bit of a turning point, maybe, of like maybe leaving like a more a way of how to write music, because this is how I was taught, you know, in this sort of tradition, you know. Maybe leaving that a little bit behind, like actually feeling like I've accomplished some things in that tradition in this piece, and I don't need to redo them. I can look at other things now, and sometimes, often that's meant not writing music and just doing art projects that might or might not involve sound.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
I have no good answer for that.
No, it's great. Yeah. I mean, things change.
Things change. Yeah. And I think that's, you know, I mean, today that seems like a very, you know, kind of dense, you know, phrase to say things change, but things do change. And like, I think change has been like a really, you know, I would say working as an artist for 10 years, there's a lot of things that aren't great, but the ability to attend and grow and enable change is one of the great pleasures of, you know, waking up every day, I think, doing the kind of things that we do. So, and I think it probably occurred to me right around the time that I was writing the piece that that's an important thing, you know, that as important as mastering skills is, and then like, oh, great, I mastered the skill. Now it becomes easy to use, you know. It was like, well, yeah, that's one pole, you know, but I can do that in many other professions, and actually just really really listening to change and like you know, watching yourself change and go in different directions is something that's pretty rare and valuable.
Yeah, and it's nice. I mean, kind of on an ending note, it's nice to now look back on this. So
hey, I listened to part of the piece the other day, like on YouTube, and I was like, oh, I you know, I like this.
Yeah.
It's very cute. I see young Adam, you know, writing this piece. I'm like, you know what, you did a good job, and like you learned things from it, and now you're somewhere else, and yeah, it feels, it's also, I think, kind of rare, you know, to in new music to have a piece that was played so many times, and then and 7 years later, you know, it's being shown in this format, which it's never really been released in video format in this kind of way. So it's kind of a wonderful kind of experience to rethink about these things for a few days.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks, Adam.
My pleasure, Noam.
Pleasure talking, and look forward to watching the video, I guess.
Good luck on the concert.
Thank you.
Don't screw up measure 2028, okay?
I'm cleaning the piece, so
I know.
Yeah. Thanks, Adam.
Okay.